Have you ever tried to learn vocabulary by reading the dictionary? And if you're a teacher, have you ever given assignments to students to write out the dictionary definitions?
Class, anyone? Anyone?
There's a much better way to learn vocabulary. My name's Nathan, and in the 19 years that I taught high school English, I tried everything to get students to improve their vocabulary. I still believe that there's no such thing as a quick fix. I did something that worked way better than just assigning vocabulary. I'm excited to share it with you here in the Natural Classroom. Before I get started, I just want to say that this video is for everyone. Teachers, parents, and students, homeschool students, public school students. So let's get started. We all grew up with some form of the vocabulary worksheet. It's usually like one column for the word, another column for the dictionary definition. Here's the word, go to the dictionary, find the dictionary definition. And if you had a teacher that cared even just a little bit, they might say, "Okay, can you put that into a sentence for me?" So here's the craziest part. When I was putting this video together, I Googled vocabulary worksheet template. And the first thing that came up was this one on Etsy. And it was for $3. You can get a 2-column chart with, on one side, the word, and the other side, it's the definition. I do think that that says something about what, if anything, has changed in the last 30 years in education. What's wrong with the vocabulary where you look something up and then you write out a sentence or something like that? I mean, is it really that bad that students are writing things down? From my experience, I've learned that unless a student is somehow personally invested in the learning, meaning that they are the ones that get to choose, the information just goes in and goes out. They might pass the test or use it on a quiz, but then it's lost and really hard to retrieve unless they've chosen it. And that's just the students that are willing to play the compliance game of education. There's plenty of students, and I think a growing number of students, that aren't playing that game anymore, that see through activities like that, and they just think, what's the point? Why are we doing this? It's not personally relevant to me. Students are right to feel like their education is being wasted, or their time is being wasted, when they are forced to do things that really they didn't choose, or they don't have any say in, or they're just not personally invested in. My question is, how do we turn this around? Well, I like to get things started by introducing a little tool that helps me to assess their level of vocabulary and gets them engaged in the process right from the beginning. And it's called 5-finger vocabulary. And it goes like this. Rather than asking the question, how many students know this word? And then having like the know-it-all kid be like,
Oh, pick me! Oh, I know, me!
I give the whole class an opportunity to give me feedback all at once. I say, give me a show of fingers where you are with this word, blank. And then using their fingers, they give me basically a rating scale from 1 to 5. And the way that the rating scale works, there's no such thing as a 0. It's a 1 to 5. So if I were doing this for myself and I was rating myself, if I'd never heard the word ever before in my life, it was the first time ever, I'd be a 1. If I've heard the word, but I have no idea what the word means, that would be a 2. If I've heard the word and I think I know what the definition is, but I can't use it in a sentence effectively, that would be a 3. A 4, I can put it into a sentence and I know what it means in that sentence. And then a 5, I can put it into multiple sentences in multiple contexts. So for the teachers watching this, right up front, you're welcome. This is an excellent way to get immediate feedback from the entire class, and it's much more powerful than just simply who knows this word. If you're interested, there's a link to a poster that I made with all of these on it, which you can use as a handout to students. But hey, if you want to make your own, be my guest. It is a paid thing for that poster. What makes this powerful is it's a pre-assessment of a word before you actually even dive into the definition. So you're checking in with yourself, where am I with this word? And then looking it up and kind of confirming whether you are that number or not. And that's incredibly helpful in helping students to be invested, right? If they're like that from the beginning with the word, where they actually care, where am I at? And am I going to improve on this based on how I assessed myself? That's incredibly powerful. So what I'll do next is I'll usually have a list of words. I'll usually do about 5 words on the board. These are words that are coming up in the reading that we're about to do. And I think it's important to keep that list short, no more than 5. So then what I'll do is I'll go through the words on the board and just say, okay, here's the word. Where's everyone with this word? And I'll go through each one of them like that. And everyone has kind of a mental understanding of where they are with those words. And then what I challenge them to do, to choose 2 words that perhaps they struggle with the most, meaning they're the lowest. Maybe they scored a 1 and a 2 on 2 of the 5 words, but the other ones are like 3 or higher. Those would be the 2 that they should focus on learning. What's important about this is by giving students the autonomy to both choose the words that they're going to focus on and having self-assess themselves, they're much more invested now in learning about what these words are. If I just given them the words and said, I need you to fill out this worksheet for all 5 of these words, I would get much less investment. Now, that's not to say that a student could look at the 5 words and just be like, I'm a 1 with all of them. I mean, they can do as many of these words as they want, but I say for a minimum, they need to do 2 of the words. I do have the worksheet available for free in the description. You're welcome to it. You may want to change it and tinker it and make it your own style. That's fine. I make it as simple as possible because I think less is more. So let's walk through this worksheet a little bit. So this is the design. Okay, 1 word here, 1 word here. The line in the top, that's where the word goes for each of them. So the 2 from the 5 that the student chose, that's where they'd go. And then you'll notice at the very beginning, there's a start and an end. Okay, so at the start, what was your number out of 5? Okay, were you a 1, 2, 3? Okay, usually it's one of those 3. Most people don't fill these out if they're a 4 or a 5 with the word. But a 2 or a 3, pretty typical, and often there are a lot of 1s. You're going to go find the dictionary definition. This is important because it's a first step towards learning the word by finding the dictionary definition. I always tell students there might be more than 1 definition, so make sure you pick the one that makes the most sense to you. Next step, you'd put that into your own words. Okay, this is really important. I've noticed a lot of students will sometimes keep looking up other ways of saying the same thing, or they'll just like put like different words for the definition. And then when I ask them what that means, they have no idea. And I think it's important that they get this step right. Now they can come back to this if they need to. So they can have the definition. Maybe they come back to this later. Down here, they're going to attempt to put it into a sentence. And this one a lot of students struggle with. I've noticed a lot of students struggle with, how do I actually use this? They'll just throw it into a sentence or just tack it on the end of a sentence. It's important to try, okay? Attempting to put it into a sentence. And then this last one, draw it. This is by far the most important part. For whatever reason, your brain makes a much stronger connection to a word or a vocabulary that you're unfamiliar with when you attempt to make a visual representation of that word. It's much more powerful for your brain to synthesize that and to record it. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but the fact that you took the time to try and attempt to make a pictorial version of that word. I think the dictionary definition really matters. Sorry, the dictionary here. Putting it in your own words really matters, but the sentence part isn't as high a priority as the sentence drawing it. When you draw it, it does not have to be perfect. It can be absolutely stick people. It's not an art class. Whole point is to create a visual representation of that word. And that's easier said than done. And because students really struggle, especially today, with like, I don't know what that looks like, they will go and they'll do like an internet search for the word. They'll look at the images that come up for that word, and then they'll just copy whatever the internet told them to put down. Most of the time, that's an ineffective way to approach that. If you can coach a person through their struggling with that, what comes to mind when you think of that word? What do you think that means? And you kind of talk it through. Well, what could that potentially look like? Let's say the word was euphoric. You're like, I don't know how to draw a euphoric. It's not about drawing euphoric. It's about coming up with a visual representation of your euphoric. And so when you look at what it means, extremely happy, pleasant, sometimes the student just doesn't seem to make that connection that, that could actually be like a happy face. And then they realize they can just draw a happy face. It sometimes takes coaching for students because so many of us, and I'd say adults too, but the generation that's coming up right now, when you hit a wall of I don't know what the answer is, it's immediate. The phones are the only way to solve the problem. So helping a student to be creative on their own, I think, is a key part of this. So I will say this about the sentences. Sometimes I'll have a student who they start out as a 3 or a 4, and then they claim that they're now a 5. I always say this: if you want to claim the top rank of knowing a word, you have to be able to prove it. So the sentences have to be 2 different sentences with 2 different uses of the word that proves that you know that word inside and out. And that's it. As long as there's 2 legitimate sentences, then it's not like they're scoring 5 points. Sometimes students think that that's what it is, but that's not how I run it. You're welcome to run it that way if you want. Make sure that they own that. You know, if they make the claim that they are a 5, they should own that claim. So as I've alluded to along the way here, how you use these assignments from here on in is up to you. I mean, you're welcome to put these into a quiz, some kind of a unit exam, if you want to embed them into part of your novel unit or something like that. Absolutely, that works. One thing I have tried with previous classes is I'll have like a prize, and it's almost like bingo. So if we're reading a novel or a poem out loud and we read the 5th and final word, a student can like shout out bingo or whatever, last word, and then they get the prize. It kind of worked. I'm sure I needed to tweak that more to make that work better, but you might have a way better idea how to use that. Is I've actually had some students come to me afterwards and say, hey, I used this in my physics class, or I used this in my biology class, and it really worked because I was making pictures of the word, I was able to associate it much more easily. And I thought that was really cool. It's beyond just simply the language arts classroom. Every Wednesday, I'll post a list of words, and this list of words are words that are going to come up on my Thursday video. And the Thursday video is me sharing my thoughts about a piece of literature of some kind or a movie clip. I'll be doing like a demonstration of how I go through a Wordy Wednesday on Wednesdays. And I mean, feel free to, subscribe, watch that video on Wednesdays, and that'll give you a much better idea of how I use Wordy Wednesday. I kind of see this as a really practical way to set the stage for success in both reading and in language acquisition by presenting the words to students before they just kind of see them on the page. They're kind of like, oh yeah, there's that word. And I love that. It's one of my favorite parts of teaching this lesson is the students that are like, hey, I know that word now. It's kind of fun to hear them say that. I like that. Anyway, that's it. I hope this really helps you in learning words for yourself, or if you're teaching students to learn words, I hope this helps you there. And I hope you have positive experiences like I've had with this. Let me know in the comments if this worked, or if you think I got a better way of doing this. I'm always open to learning more. Thanks for sticking around, and I hope to see you on a future video.